Good evening, and welcome to Nox Historia. Tonight, we travel to the world of Lhasa, Tibet. So set the day down. It has already taken you everything that it was ever going to take, and it is finished with you now. Let your shoulders come down. Let your jaw go soft. Let the breath go long and low and unhurried, because where we are going, the air is thin and cold and very clean, and people there have always taken their time about everything. The light is going amber over a wide brown valley, and the smell on the air is juniper smoke and roasted barley and warm butter. Come with me gently. We are going somewhere high and quiet and much busier than you have been told. We are traveling to Lhasa in Tibet in the year 1650. By the calendar they keep here, this is an Iron Tiger year. Tibetan years are named in a cycle of 60, each carrying an animal and element, so the same name will not come round again for a lifetime. It is 8 years since a new government was established here, the Ganden Phodrang, named at a residence at the great monastery of Drepung, just west of the city. At the head of it is a man of 33 named Nawang Lobsang Gyatso, the Fifth Dalai Lama, and the daily running of it belongs largely to his regent, the Desi, Sonam Rapten, who is the one actually counting the timber and the laborers. And on the red rock at the western edge of town, something enormous has just gone up. They began it 5 years ago, in 1645, on the hill called Marpo Ri, and last year the first great block of it was finished, and the Dalai Lama moved in. It is called the Potala. And here is something most people never learn. Look along the top of that palace and of every temple wall in this valley, and you will see a broad band of deep maroon under the roofline, like a stripe of dark velvet. It is not stone, it is not paint, it is twigs, bundles of a wiry mountain shrub, cut and dried and dyed dark red, packed on end in their hundreds of thousands, pinned through with dowels, then sheared off flat as if a giant had trimmed a hedge. It is called pemar, and it is doing 2 things at once. It weighs almost nothing, so a wall can go far higher before its own mass begins to crush the courses beneath it, and it is full of trapped air, so it insulates the topmost rooms against a cold that comes down hard every night of the year. The grandest walls in Tibet are finished in brushwood. You do not need to remember any of this. Not the names, not the dates, not a single number. Let it drift past you like smoke going up in still air. And if you happen to fall asleep before the end, that is exactly what this is for. So let us begin. We come into the Lhasa Valley at dusk, along the flat, with the mountains standing back on every side, brown and bare and enormous. The first thing your body notices is not the view, it is the breath. You are at about 3,650 meters here, and each lungful holds roughly 1/3 less oxygen than the one you took this morning at home. Nothing is wrong. You simply cannot hurry, and neither can anybody else. And after a while, that stops feeling like a limitation and starts feeling like permission. The other thing is the light. This is one of the sunniest inhabited places on Earth, close to 3,000 hours of sun a year. And at this hour, it comes in low and sideways and turns the whole valley the color of weak honey. Ahead of you, Marpo Ri lifts out of the flat ground. The new white palace climbs it in tiers, and the last of the sun is sitting on it.
Come down now into the streets, which gather in close around the old temple at the heart of the town. The houses are built of stone and rammed earth, and their walls lean very slightly inward as they rise, so every building looks a little like a small mountain of its own. They are whitewashed, and the window frames are painted black and widen towards the bottom, which makes each window look as though it is quietly opening its eyes. The roofs are flat, and in a dry place, a flat roof is a floor you can use. They are made of agar, a clay and gravel mixture spread wet and then beaten for days with long-handled wooden rammers by rows of people who beat in time and sing while they do it, because there is no other way to get through it. Up on those roofs, thin blue-white threads of juniper smoke are going straight up into the cold. That is sang, a handful of juniper needles laid on embers at dusk, and it is the smell of the whole city. The Barkhor is where the city trades. It is the circuit of streets running all the way around the old temple, a lap of about a kilometer, and it is a pilgrimage route and a marketplace at once, and nobody here finds that a contradiction. It is folding up for the evening. Awnings come down, bales are roped shut, and what has been sold here today came from a very long way off. Brick tea from the Chinese provinces to the east, pressed hard into slabs and carried over the mountain roads on the backs of men and mules. Salt from the flat lakes of the northern plateau, brought down by yak caravan by herding families who trade it sack for sack against the barley of the valley farmers. Saffron, dried apricots, coral and turquoise, cotton cloth from India, silk, and small bright silver coins struck in the Kathmandu Valley specifically for use up here. This is not a sealed city. I would like to put that one gently right, because it is the most persistent thing believed about this place. Later, in the 18 and 1900s, Tibet will acquire a reputation in Europe as the forbidden land, and the Potala will be imagined as the fortress of a kingdom that never let an outsider in. That is not what is happening tonight. Lhasa, in 1650, is a working international market town. There are Niwa craftsmen here from the Kathmandu Valley, and they are not newcomers. Niwa metalworkers have been coming north for centuries. One of them, Araniko, went all the way to Kublai Khan's court nearly 400 years ago. There is a long-settled Kashmiri Muslim community, Bikache, dealing in wool and cloth and saffron, and the Fifth Dalai Lama is remembered for granting them ground of their own here. There are Mongols, some trading and many studying in the monasteries, and Europeans have already reached the plateau. Jesuits came to the far west of it in 1624, and in 11 years' time, two of them, Johannes Gruber and Albert d'Orville, will walk into Lhasa and stay about 2 months, and Gruber will make the drawing of the Potala that Europe first sees it by. The Forbidden Land is a later story. Tonight, this is simply a busy town at the top of the world. Every circuit here is walked clockwise. In a moment, you will see people doing it, and it looks like a current in a river. There are 3 of these routes, and they sit inside one another like rings. The innermost, the Nangkor, is a dim corridor inside the temple itself. The middle one is the Barkhor you are standing on, and the outermost is the Lingkor, which loops right around the whole holy city, past the foot of Marpo Ri and its sister hill, and runs something like 8 kilometers. Some walk it every evening. The temple they're circling is the Jokang, founded in the 7th century, and inside it sits the Jowo Shakyamuni, a gilded seated figure, the most venerated statue in Tibet, said to have come here with a Tang Chinese princess more than 900 years ago. Push the heavy door open a little, and the air that comes out is warm and thick and gold with the smoke of butter lamps, hundreds of them in low rows, each a small dish of melted yak butter with a wick standing in it. The air in there has smelled of butter for 1,000 years. Now turn in at a doorway off a side lane in a house like any other. The door is low and you have to duck. Inside it is dark, and the darkness is deliberate. Small windows mean the cold stays out and the warmth stays in. You climb a steep ladder-stair to the upper floor because the ground floor is for animals and stores, and the animals underneath you are part of the heating. Up here, the beams are heavy and dark, and the pillars have carved capitals painted in red and green and gold. There are low carpets on the sleeping platforms, knotted in wool around a rod so the pile comes out even. Painted wooden chests, a shelf of copper and clay vessels. Everything you can see is either useful or holy, and a good deal of it is both. The hearth is the center of everything. It is a low clay stove, and what is burning in it is not wood. There are very few trees at this altitude, and what timber exists is far too precious to burn. It is dried yak dung, patted into flat cakes by hand and stuck on a sunny wall to dry. It burns slow and warm and with almost no smell, and it is the reason human beings can live this high at all. And notice how the flame behaves. Up here there is less air to feed it, so the fire is gentler than you expect, and water in an open pot will boil at about 87 degrees instead of 100. It will bubble away merrily and never get properly hot. That is the reason the food of this whole plateau is built the way it is. The tea comes first, always. Someone lifts down a tall wooden cylinder, a dongmo, bound with hoops, with a plunger through the lid. Into it goes a dark, long-simmered decoction made from a lump broken off a brick of tea, then a pinch of salt, then a lump of yak butter. And then it is churned, up and down, 30 or 40 strokes, until it comes out warm and pale and slightly thickened, more like a broth than a drink. That is po cha, butter tea, and in a cold, dry, high place it is precisely what a body wants. Now the bowl. Everybody carries their own wooden bowl, kept in the fold of the robe, and they know it the way you know your own hands. Butter tea goes in it, then a handful of tsampa, barley roasted first and then ground, so it is already cooked, which is the point in a country where nothing will boil hard. You work it together with the fingers of one hand, turning the bowl, until it comes into a soft ball of dough. That is pak, that is breakfast and dinner, and what you eat on the road, and it needs no fire at all.
In the corner, a painter is working while there is still lamplight. He is making a thangka, a scroll painting on cloth, to be rolled up and carried or hung. The cotton has been stretched drum-tight on a frame, sized with a chalk ground and burnished with a smooth stone until it takes a line like paper. He does not begin by drawing what he feels like. He begins with a grid, snapped on with a chalked string, because the proportions of a sacred figure are fixed by measurement, handed down, and to change them is not artistry but error. The colors in the little dishes beside him are ground from stone, green from malachite, blue from azurite, the two so often found in the same seam of rock that the green and the blue on this cloth may have come out of the same hillside. Red from cinnabar, yellow from orpiment. Gold is beaten thin, ground with glue, and laid on last. And the very last thing he will do, on a day chosen for it, is paint the eyes. Until the eyes are opened, the figure is not finished. There are books in this house, and they do not look like books. They are pecha, long, narrow leaves, unbound, printed on both sides, stacked loose between two wooden boards, and tied in a cloth,
a shape borrowed from the palm leaves of Indian manuscripts, kept faithfully by a country that has no palms. And they are printed, not copied. Somewhere across the valley, a carver is cutting a page of text into a block of seasoned hardwood in mirror image, working from the back of the letters, so a monastery can strike off 100 copies and 100 more next year from the same block. Ink is soot and glue. The paper is made from the bark and root of a mountain shrub, which, conveniently, is mildly poisonous, so insects will not eat the pages. Whole libraries survive because of that one small botanical accident. The evening settles into its own rhythm. Someone is spinning wool on a hand spindle without looking at it. Someone is turning a small prayer wheel, clockwise, a cylinder on a handle with a tight roll of printed mantras inside it. Every rotation is the whole text said. Someone is talking about the calendar, because the calendar here is lunar and slightly unruly. Months begin near the new moon. The full moon falls on the 15th, and to keep the moon and the sun agreeing, the astronomers sometimes drop a day out of a month altogether, or count the same day twice. So people ask quite seriously and quite often which day it is today. And this is not confusion, it is administration. And in the first month of the year, the whole town changes character when great numbers of monks come down into Lhasa for the great prayer festival, and the streets belong to them for a fortnight. That is months away yet. Tonight is an ordinary night. Now the household lies down to sleep, and it happens without much ceremony. The sleeping platforms along the walls are already made up with wool and sheepskin. The great robe that has been worn all day with one arm out of its sleeve now becomes the blanket. It was always going to be the blanket. That is why it is cut so generously. The lamp is put out. The dung fire is banked down under ash, so a few embers will still be alive in the morning, which saves the whole business of relighting in the cold. And the cold does come. However warm the day has been, the nights up here go sharp and hard all year round, so everybody sleeps close and low and covered.
Step outside for a moment into the cold while the house sleeps. The stars over Lhasa are extraordinary. This high, with this little air above you, they are not points so much as a thick spilled brightness right down to the ridgelines. The white palace on Marpo Ri is a pale shape against the dark sky, and out across the valley are lamps, small and scattered high on the hillsides, because the great monasteries are out there in the dark. Drepung, 5 kilometers to the west, founded in 1416, Sera to the north, 1419, and Ganden away east on its mountain, oldest of the three, 1409. Thousands of monks in each. They are asleep now too, but not for long. Their day begins in the dark, with tea carried out from copper cauldrons big enough to bathe in. And by first light, several thousand voices will be going at once in each of those halls, low and overlapping. From here, on a still night, you might just catch the long, low note of a horn, and then nothing again. And the mountain is not on any map. That is the last thing worth telling you tonight. The palace on the red rock is named for Potala, a mountain described in the old scriptures as the dwelling place of Churn, the being who embodies compassion. A mountain somewhere far to the south, in India, that nobody has ever satisfactorily found, and which is probably not that sort of place at all. The Dalai Lamas are held to be his presence in the world. So when they built here, on a rock where a king had raised a fort 1,000 years before, they did not name it after the king, or the rock, or the city.
They named it after a mountain in a story, and then made it real in stone and earth and bundled twigs. The Red Palace at its heart will not be raised for another 40 years. What stands tonight is the white part, the living part, and the man in the top rooms of it is up late, as he usually is, writing. And that, in the end, is how we know so much about this night, because he wrote it down. The Fifth Dalai Lama was an unusually prolific author, a history of Tibet finished in 1643, and an autobiography so long and detailed that historians still work through it, recording buildings and weather and journeys and small irritations. The Ganden Phodrang kept its records, and much of that archive survives. Gruber will draw what he sees, and the buildings stayed standing, the Jokong and the palace on the Red Rock, finished at last at 13 stories and something like 117 meters, on the World Heritage List since 1994. You can walk the Barkhor tomorrow morning in your own century, clockwise with everyone else, past the butter lamps and the juniper smoke, and it will be the same circuit in the same direction around the same statue. So let that be the last soft thought. A high brown valley, a great deal of sky, a wall finished in brushwood, a bowl of barley worked with the fingers, a fire banked under ash for the morning. Ordinary people at the top of the world, doing ordinary things carefully and slowly because the air will not let them do it any other way. They put out the lamp and pulled the sheepskin over and lay down in the cold, clean dark, as you, perhaps, are sleeping now. The embers are going from red to gray. The juniper smoke has thinned out and gone. The palace on the rock is only a shape now, and the stars have the valley to themselves, and nothing in the whole city is in any hurry at all. So let go of the last of it, whatever you are still holding. It is not yours tonight, and it is not needed here. Let your hands go loose. Let your breath go slow and easy, the way everyone breathes at this altitude, without effort. There is nothing to answer, nothing to carry, nothing to finish. Sleep well, and when you are ready to travel again, Nox Historia will be waiting. Good night.